Hi Capricorn, this is Tisch Aitken, and this is your monthly report for the month of June. We begin the month in eclipse season, which means major turning points, major beginnings and endings, and revelations. Eclipses make us see things in a way that we've never seen before, and they bring things to light. Sometimes it's something that you've known about for a while, and it finally just, explodes in some way, or there's a major blow up or whatever it might be. But sometimes it can be completely out of the blue because eclipses are wild cards, and then suddenly your life or your path is changed altogether. That's why the ancients feared them, because they can be very disruptive. They can also bring in excellent opportunities out of the blue, where you're like, wow, I've seen all of the above happen. I've seen amazing things happen unexpectedly. I've seen people receive very difficult news on the day of an eclipse, something that is life-changing. But with all of that said, we're in a period of rapid change in a very short period of time. Saturn, which is the ruler of your sign, stationed retrograde on May 23rd at 13 degrees of the fixed air sign of Aquarius. Saturn rules your sign in modern astrology, and it rules Aquarius in ancient astrology. So it's technically still in its dignity. It's transiting in your house of value and income and creativity and self-esteem. And it'll be there until March 7th of 2023. Now Saturn is retrograde, and it stations direct on October 10th at 6 degrees of Aquarius. So you're reassessing how you can be more productive in earning money, how you can feel better about yourself and build your self-esteem. And Saturn is the reality planet. I don't need to tell you that. So everybody is reassessing how he or she can be more real and productive in what they're trying to achieve. There's a lot of mutability, so my mind is going in different directions, and that has been the tone for a while, because as we begin the month of June, there will already have been a lunar eclipse, which takes place tomorrow as I'm filming this. There's a lunar eclipse. It's a total lunar eclipse at 5 degrees and 25 minutes of the mutable fire sign of Sagittarius. And that lunar eclipse occurs in your house of spirituality and the imagination, as well as the subconscious mind. Maybe you get some revelations through your dreams, but realistically there's certain things that you're releasing. It's a south node eclipse, which means already there are things to let go of in order to transcend. But it's in the 12th house of completion and endings, and you may find that your dreams are really intense at the end of May, early June, with all of this energy in your 12th house. And also with Jupiter in Pisces, Jupiter is the grand benefic, and it entered the mutable water sign of Pisces on May 13th. It will be there until July 29th, and it's transiting in your third house of thinking and mindset, communication, as well as commerce and sales and local environment. And for you, you really want to figure out how to tap into manifesting and to expanding your knowledge. You went through a lot of restructuring and a lot of loss and change in the last few years. So now, how do you tap into the magic of Jupiter and Pisces? We only have it for a couple of months, but it will re-enter Pisces on December 29th, and it'll be in your third house until May 10th of next year, and then it'll re-enter later in the year at the late degrees of Pisces. How do you tap into that magic? And Right now, there's a lot of mutability, which means that things are not stable. You're ruled by Saturn, which is security and stability. Saturn retrograded. So, although there is a lot of mutability, the universe wants us to figure out how we can ground ourselves as well. For you, it's figuring out how you can ground yourself more through your creativity and how you can earn money in this new era of Aquarius. And in the beginning of the month, there are 4 points transiting in Gemini, in your house of health and habits. Mercury, which rules this house for you and rules the sign of Gemini, station retrograde on May 29th at 24 degrees and 43 minutes of the mutable sign of Gemini. And it'll be retrograde until June 22nd, when it stations direct at 16 degrees of Gemini. Mercury loves being in Gemini. It's in its dignity, but it can be tricky and it can go in different directions. Venus, which is also transiting in Gemini for a day, it actually changes signs on the 2nd. Venus is out of bounds until June 18th, which means that it exceeds 23 degrees and 27 minutes north or south of the equator, and it's not playing by the rules. It's very erratic and unpredictable, so we've got that energy too. So we need to structure but tap into the creativity and magic. Jupiter in Pisces is sheer magic in your house of thinking. Venus out of bounds in Gemini gives a lot of options for work opportunities and for relationship opportunities, but it's out of bounds. So tapping into being flexible, that's the word, flexible. So on June 2nd, Venus changes signs and enters the cardinal water sign of Cancer, where it will be until June 27th. And it's transiting in your house of partnerships and relationships. If you're single, it's an excellent time for meeting people, but it's also good for many different ways of partnering with other people, socially, professionally, and partnering with yourself. On the 3rd of June, the Sun in Gemini forms a beautiful trine to Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn is transiting in your house of value and income, and the Sun is transiting in your house of work. This could bring good financial and work opportunities, and that happens at 3:05 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Later at 7:33 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the two benefics are in harmony. Venus transiting in your house of relationships and partnerships, transiting and making a trine to Jupiter in Pisces. And Jupiter is transiting in your house of thinking and local community. This is excellent for going, excellent for financial partnerships and just partnering with others in every way. Nice energy. On the 5th of June, we have more difficult aspects, more of a day definitely to lay low. At 3:05 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Mercury, which is the planet of communication, squares Neptune, and that can bring deception or misunderstandings. It's good for doing manifesting work, but it is confusing. And then at 3:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Mars opposes Pluto. Pluto is transiting in your sign, and Mars has been transiting in your house of relationships in the sign of Cancer since April 23rd. Mars doesn't like being in the 7th house. It's in its detriment, and it doesn't like being in Cancer because it's in its fall position. And when it opposes Pluto, that's an aspect of war and combat. And these are the relationship houses being activated. So lay low with that energy and try to work on projects by yourself if you're able. And then on the 10th of June, The solar eclipse occurs at 6:53 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 19 degrees of the mutable air sign of Gemini. This is a time of setting intentions and figuring out what you want to initiate in your work and in your routines, with your health regimen. This is excellent for getting in shape and other elements of your health, mentally, physically, spiritually. I would not necessarily target something for the day of the solar eclipse, but if something comes your way that's an amazing opportunity, definitely take it for work or whatever it might be. Otherwise, set intentions, do the law of abundance, and figure out what you want to initiate. Later that morning at 8:37 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the moon meets up with Mercury, and this helps to translate the messages of this eclipse. Again, it's in Gemini, which is the sign of communication and news. And we have Mercury retrograde, very involved in this eclipse. We've got Venus out of bounds in Gemini, so you know all sorts of tales are being told, and eclipses uncover things anyway. When the moon goes void of course, it does so at 1:53 p.m. Eastern, 1:38 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, with a square to Neptune. And this dissolves things and also pronounces the Neptunian influence so strong in the month of June. It's creative, but it's also reminding us all of what we're letting go of and of all the loss that we've endured in this last year, or 14 months, even more. But that's part of it. And then later in the day, the sun meets up with Mercury at 9:13 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time and brings more information. On the following day, on June 11th, Mars changes signs and enters the fixed fire sign of Leo, where it will be until July 29th. And this is Mars is transiting in your house of wounds and intimacy and transformation. It's a good time for doing healing work and working on self-empowerment and trying to tap into your courage again and processing the anger as well. On July 12th, we've got Venus squaring Chiron, the wounded healer. Chiron is transiting in your house of home and family and emotional foundation. And Venus is transiting in your house of relationships. This could bring up wounds around partnerships, around family, or loss that you maybe have experienced. Later at 10:38 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on the 12th, or early in the morning on June 13th at 1:38 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Venus forms a helpful aspect to Uranus, and this could bring creative and positive solutions with finances and with relationships. But later in the day at 7:40 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the sun squares Neptune, and that again pronounces the loss and confusion that everyone is feeling, and it comes in waves. There are times where you'll tap into the magic and times where it'll feel so all over the place and scattered that it's hard to anchor these goals. Manifest, create, and keep learning. That's Jupiter in the third house. That will really help you a lot if you meditate or do manifesting work. And then on the, let's see here, on the 14th of June, we have a big aspect occurring. One of the rulers of your sign, Saturn, squares Uranus at 6:01 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 13 degrees of the fixed signs. Saturn is now retrograde at 13 degrees of Aquarius in your house of income and what you value, and it's squaring Uranus in Taurus. And Uranus is transiting in your fifth house of creativity and romance and love affairs. And for you, it's trying to figure out how you can be creative in this new time. This is the second of 3 hits. The first occurred on February 17th at 7 degrees of the fixed signs. And they are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And it can be unsettling energy. Saturn is the old and Uranus is the new. And Saturn is structure and Uranus is chaos. We need to figure out how to structure the chaos without it being too chaotic, and structure the brilliance without reverting to old ways that no longer serve us. Not easy, but we'll do it, and we have no choice. And the last time that happened was on February 17th when we had the big power outage in Texas. So obviously it was an awful experience, an awful time, and very disruptive. So it can bring explosions and outages metaphorically and literally. So knowing that we're all working with that chaos, and that's occurring during eclipse season. Then on the, let's see, on the 20th of June, we have 2 big events. At 11:06 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Jupiter, which is the Grand Benefic, stations retrograde at 11:06 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 2 degrees of the mutable water sign of Pisces. And this is occurring in your house of thoughts and ideas. And Jupiter will be there until July 29th. We feel that 5 days before and 5 days after. And that's the biggest planet and the planet of how we can expand and magnetize what we want in life. And so you're reassessing how you can be more optimistic, and also how you connect and network more with others. And then later that day at 11:32 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the summer solstice occurs on the northern hemisphere. The sun is at its maximum declination, and it's the longest day in the northern hemisphere, and begins the summer season. The sun stops, and we honor what we want the next 3 months to be. It's at its lowest point in the southern hemisphere, and it marks the beginning of winter. And for you, the sun will be transiting in your house of partnerships and relationships, and will be there until July 20th. So good for focusing on your relationships and shining through your partnerships. So that's nice energy. 1st of June, Venus trines Neptune, and Venus is transiting in your house of relationships, trining Neptune in your house of communication and ideas. And if you're single, for going on a date, great for all sorts of networking and just feeling good. Those are the 2 benefics, the 2 luckiest planets. On the 22nd of June, Mercury stations direct at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 16 degrees of Gemini in your house of work and routine. It will remain in this house until July 11th, and this is a really good placement for getting things done and being very detailed in your work and your habits in the next couple of months as you proceed ahead. On the 22nd of June, it's a mixed bag. We have the sun trining Jupiter, and that can be very optimistic, and it's really good for manifesting energy. But later that day, Venus in Cancer opposes Pluto in your sign, and Venus is transiting in your house of relationships. That could bring breakups and power struggles, so definitely lay low with that energy. On the 24th of June, there's a full moon that occurs in your sign at 2:40 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at 3 degrees and 28 minutes of Capricorn. think back to what was happening on the solar eclipse on December 26th of 2019. That was at 4 degrees of Capricorn. And this full moon sets that off. And you may get more information or tools of what to help you with what you've been working on since that time. Maybe you get resolution of what you've been dealing with since that time. And then on the 25th of June, Neptune stations retrograde at the mutable water sign of Pisces at 23 degrees, and we feel that 5 days before and 5 days after. And that's occurring in your house of ideas and thinking. And that can be very foggy and confusing. Everybody will feel in a fog with that. And since it is still officially eclipse season, there may be more information and stories and deception uncovered. I think realistically there will be. And then on the 27th of June, Venus enters the fixed fire sign of Leo, where it'll be until July 21st. And it's transiting in your house of joint resources. So this could be good for your financial opportunities. I wish you a lot of luck. It's a major time with the eclipses and a lot of stories being told. So pay attention and also focus on your habits and get some rest. Thanks, Capricorn.